probably appreciate that Victor Alpha did have a jamming device set up near to it recently, and someone fitted a booby trap to it. Someone could have been blinded or indeed killed with that device. But from the other aspect, of course they should be stopped. We're not doing any harm. We're using our radio for our hobby. And these people, for whatever reason, sheer devilment, vandalism, they need to be stopped.
Back in the summer of 1995, amateur radio operators using the repeater at Brill in Aylesbury were the victim of constant interference. As summer wore on, someone set out to find who or what was causing the interference, and a quite remarkable story unfolded from that point, which went down in history as the Aylesbury repeater bomb incident. It made the national news and filled the local front pages, and I've done a video on this before. However, I've decided to remake it because the story was widely reported incorrectly, with many discrepancies and errors. This version contains lots of extra pieces of information that have never been publicly revealed before.
Nobody's making a recording of this, but I'll tell you this, you're gonna be dead by Friday. Believe me, I am not joking.
GB3VA was a 2-metre VHF amateur radio repeater that was located at Brill Church. During the mid-1990s, it was being targeted by a person or persons unknown every time it was used, and the interference was so prolific that radio amateurs soon suspected that something automated was causing it. What was now believed to be some sort of electronic device, as opposed to a human being, played many pieces of music and scrambled speech containing recordings of radio amateurs that were being targeted. The transmissions appeared to be completely random, sometimes resetting during transmit and returning to the start of a particular message. The messages mainly ridiculed the GB3VA repeater group and the Robin Hood pub they held their meetings in. The GB3VA repeater group was, for reasons unclear, in the crosshairs of more than one renegade radio ham group as well as individuals. After one meeting during the 1980s, members came out to find their cars graffitied with anti-repeater group propaganda material. The problem with the jamming device was that it transmitted every 10 minutes, and when it fired up, it was on the air for far too long, making it an easy target. It was soon found by radio amateurs using radio direction finding equipment, an antenna and a radio, and was stolen. The whereabouts of this first jammer isn't clear. The device was expensive and a lot of work went into its construction, but nevertheless, a new and improved incarnation was back on the air the same week, but this time there was a sinister difference. Today, small devices attached to something like an inexpensive Baofeng radio can be used to make a simple jamming device, not that anyone should, but in those days, jamming devices were much bigger and harder to conceal. This is an example of a Laughing Policeman Wireless Society jammer that was donated to me some years ago for use on the channel in another video, which I'll link below. As planned, the new jammer was doing what it was designed to do on GB3VA, and again a group of radio amateurs decided to set out to find it. They traced the signal to a private estate near Watton Underwood, just northeast of Brill, on September 19, 1995. The location of this estate was never specifically revealed publicly. In fact, it was deliberately kept a secret until a TV report gave a more concrete clue, but it didn't take too much effort to find it. The amateurs approached the estate's manager and showed him their direction-finding equipment and demonstrated how it worked. After some searching of the grounds, they circled a small island on a lake, and their directional readings seemed to confirm this as the likely location of the jammer. The tiny 22-metre-long island, which sits in the grounds of the Watton estate, was densely populated with trees and appeared to be the perfect location to hide the device. This is where the Watton estate's manager came in. He was tasked to inspect the island. He got into a small boat and walked onto the island and found the jammer. The first thing he noticed was a photocell, a sensor that detects and responds to light by changing its electrical resistance, which is then used to control an electrical circuit or device. The photocell was propped up against a tree with wires coming off it. He moved some of the topsoil and brush and found the rest of the jammer. It consisted of a plastic box about the size of a burglar alarm, described as a Tupperware-type box used for storing food. It was attached to a solar panel, which kept a small battery running. The antenna was concealed in a conduit half an inch in diameter and 3 feet long. The panel, the photocell, and conduit containing the wiring was all that was visible in the undergrowth. It was clear that the device was booby-trapped with some sort of explosive that was designed to go off if disturbed by anyone trying to locate it. An explosive hazard sign was attached to the box. The estate's manager relayed to the radio amateurs what he'd found. He hooked it out with a stick and could see the flare attached, threw it in his boat and headed back to the bank. The radio amateur opened the device and disarmed it with a pair of wire snips. He revealed that a previous device had a radioactive warning sign on it, but it posed no risk. The radio amateur took the Watton Estate jammer home. The news reported that it was later collected by the Department of Trade and Industry out of Northampton, and that local police weren't told until Friday the 29th of September, 10 days after the discovery. There's a strange element to this, however. The device was discovered around mid-morning on September the 19th, 1995, and by the early evening, still during daylight, so not long after the discovery, a local television crew descended on the estate, wanting to film the manager's version of events.
Amateur radio enthusiasts say saboteurs who've been jamming the airways must be stopped before someone is killed. It follows the discovery of a jamming device which had been booby-trapped with explosives.
Hidden by a tree on an island in the middle of nowhere, a crude radio device, booby-trapped with explosives. The man who discovered it was cautious about his find. Luckily for him, it failed to go off.
I unearthed topsoil and found a white box, and he said be a bit careful, so I got a long stick and I just poked a whole lot out and had a look in the bottom of the hole, and in the bottom of the hole I said, well, I think it's a sort of a booby trap thing. It's a sort of a peg with a little battery on it and that little flare thing on the bottom.
You probably appreciate that Victor Alpha did have a jamming device set up near to it recently, and someone fitted a booby trap to it.
In recent weeks, radio amateurs who've been sending messages to far-flung friends have been suffering unexpected interference and interruptions. The device, which had been placed close to a relay mast at Brill, had been jamming their transmissions. But now it's become more than an irritation. It's a sinister and calculated development. The booby trap was clearly supposed to harm anyone trying to move the device.
The police were also involved straight away, but the story didn't break until September the 30th, 11 days later. All of those stories said that there was a 10-day gap between the discovery of the device and the police being informed by the DTI. Maybe there was some sort of behind-the-scenes investigation before the news were allowed to publish the story. It was also rumoured that the SAS were involved in the incident somewhere along the line, possibly due to a link with whoever lived at Watton Hall at the time. This is simply not true. There was no conspiracy regarding the device location, and the residents of the hall and the estate as a whole were completely unrelated. The island was chosen because it was somewhat hard to reach in a private estate 200 metres from the nearest road, meaning that the person that planted it could run in and out quickly without detection. It's not clear, however, how he got onto the island. A week after its discovery, the estate's manager found a car battery on the bank of the lake that wasn't there previously. It appeared that whoever planted the jammer had gone back after its removal to upgrade its power system, therefore prolonging its life. Detective Sergeant Lee Payne said, "The explosive device could have caused serious injury. It was designed to explode when the box was removed from the ground. There was little if any risk of danger being caused to the public, but it was reported that the radio enthusiast tracking it down could have been hurt." The police said that numerous other jamming devices had recently been found throughout the UK, although there were no reports of booby traps before this incident. The one found at Brill played the theme from the Mission Impossible TV show and was designed to scare off any DTI officer or radio amateur who approached by activating the explosive. When the story finally made the local news headlines, they reported that the device was intended to interfere with activities of radio amateurs using the GB3VA repeater. It was also reported that it was planted by a radio amateur with a grudge. The story made the national news in both print and on the television, and was soon picked up by BBC Radio 4 and BBC Television. It also appeared on the teletext and CFAX information services too. The main face of the story at this time was Ivan Emus, a radio amateur from Aylesbury, callsign G3KLT. He described the incident as terrorism and was interviewed in the local news.
You probably appreciate that Victor Alpha did have a jamming device set up near to it recently, and someone fitted a booby trap to it. Someone could have been blinded or maimed or indeed killed with that device the other day. But from the other aspect, of course they should be stopped. We're not doing any harm. We're using our radio for our hobby, and these people, for whatever reason, sheer devilment, vandalism, they need to be stopped.
Sadly, Ivan passed away at the age of 85 on the 25th of July 2020. It soon transpired that the police had been told that a similar device to the one discovered near Brill was buried somewhere else in the Thames Valley area, and they quickly issued an urgent warning. "We have no reason to believe it's local, it could be anywhere," said DS Payne. Police began warning anyone in the Aylesbury area not to disturb any device they happened to find. Thames CID had no idea where it was, had no new leads, and knew of no motive. The second device was never discovered. After this incident, GB3VA was required to be immediately switched off at the first sign of any abuse. While the jamming device and its booby trap were widely reported as a bomb, it was nothing more than a marine distress flare. Sometime after it reached the custody of the Department of Trade and Industry, the bomb squad were apparently called to defuse it. It was indeed blown up by all accounts in order to make it safe so it could be examined further. I suspect this looked better on the authorities than discarding it as a marine distress flare that fortunately posed no danger. Numerous theories on who was behind the booby trap started to circle. DCI Morey of Northamptonshire Police said, "We believe there's a group of people who take great delight in spoiling other people's pleasure." The finger very quickly pointed towards the Laughing Policeman Wireless Society. Described as a secretive group that appeared to be dedicated to disrupting the harmless hobby of Britain's 60,000 radio hams, they were well known at the time for repeater jamming antics and playing music and recorded messages over the air. 4 police officers were investigating attacks on the homes of Radio Communications Agency officials, as well as incidents of booby-trapped explosive devices planted in trees and bushes. The group stated in its various newsletters that it was determined to close down all of the country's then 50 hilltop amateur radio repeaters. The DTI certainly suspected the Laughing Policeman Wireless Society of planting the booby-trap device in Brill, but there was no evidence for this. I can also confirm that the Laughing Policeman was not behind this incident. It was reported by the Laughing Policeman that a splinter group of disgruntled radio amateurs from the North London area were behind the booby trap, but this wasn't the case either. Mystery still surrounds this story. It's not clear why it took 10 days for the DTI men to inform the police about their findings. Was this even true? The news claimed it was, but was this put in news reports to account for the 10-day delay while someone above the police investigated the incident thoroughly? There's no way to explain why the television crew filmed the estate on September the 19th, and no news broke until September the 30th. Who tipped off the television crew? When the device was found, it was clear to see that the explosive device was just a smoke flare. Therefore, was any sort of secret investigation even warranted?
Yes, they don't like it, do they? They turned up in Peugeots and they went away in ambulances. Oh my God, they've turned up and they bust all these pirate radio stations around Brom with no trouble whatsoever. And then they turned up to see me. You'll notice they've not come back, wonder why they've not bothered to come back, what is it? Fear?
It was never revealed who the radio amateur that found the booby trap was. If you're watching this, I'd love to chat with you, and you can contact me via the details on screen should you wish. The location of the second device was never found, and no details around it were presented publicly. I can reveal that it was suspected to be in the Aylesbury area, and that another frequency around the town was being jammed by a similar device at the same time. The DTI refused to comment on the incident, and when asked to release a photo or drawing of the jammer, they declined because of fears somebody would try to copy it. Another element that was omitted from news reports of the time was the remarkable claim by an unknown radio amateur that at least 10 non-dangerous jammers were found in the Aylesbury area, one a year for 10 years. With anyone linked to the incident remaining tight-lipped, it's no wonder the culprit has never been found. He was a Lone Ranger, not affiliated with any radio clubs or anti-repeater type groups. 30 years later, his identity has never been publicly revealed. With the ultimate lack of any criminal activity taking place, apart from repeater jamming of course, and the fact that 0 explosives were used, the matter wasn't taken any further.